All right. Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming to the last talk of the day. I actually want to see who is in the room just to see what am I actually talking about. Okay, I have a couple ISVs in the room, so that's great. That's great. All right, so I'm going to talk about Spade. Most of the people in the room actually know what it is. Half of the room is actually using it, and the other half of the room is working on it, so that's great. What is Spade? Spade is this. Now, the important thing is the stuff in the top right corner. It's an SP-oriented storage marketplace. What does this mean? Unlike most of the other conversations that took place in this room, what we try to do in Spade is we flip the script and we say the storage provider is our client. This is the person we care about. This is the person we're friends with. This is the person who we optimize everything for. That's why SP-oriented. So what does this mean? This means that we make it so that the storage provider has to do as few moves, as little energy and gas expended to do anything. So what does this mean from a storage provider perspective? They want a steady stream of data that they have down to the second control over when and how it gets landed into their pipeline. They decide what kind of content they want to work with right now. They decide ideally in the future, this is work in progress, in the future they decide how much they want to be paid for various content and so on and so forth. They also decide what kind of conditions they want to take this content on. So, I will give a very brief overview of what the system is actually built from, and I won't really be talking about how the system itself works from an SP perspective, because we have docs on that, you can see it. We are also still in what we call an open alpha, so we do not take signups from data owners today. We hope that by the end of Q4 we will have the entire story figured out. We do take signups from storage providers with the limitation that, again, the data owners that we have in the systems are currently somewhat limited in terms of range and type of service that they expect. So, what do we have? Do I have a laser pointer? Oh, that's cool. Okay, so what do we have? We start with a what's called here storage client. Is effectively the data owner. So it doesn't matter where data came from. This person has it, and this person is somehow preparing this data if they need to. The system is agnostic to how what form is the data in, and what they need to give to the rest of the system is three things. They need to give the SP requirements, which can be either a set of constraints, like I want stuff not replicate in China, I want it replicated 10 times total, I want it to replicate no more than twice in the same city, things like that. They also could give us a list of SPs, this very open-ended. And this replication policy that I just mentioned, how many times they want a particular PCID to get on chain, and then we have the PCIDs themselves with their sources. So what does this mean? Is that as a data owner, all you have to provide to the rest of the system is what the data is, where a potential SP can get it, and how many times this data can be replicated in the system. This is all the client does. They do not talk to the chain. They do not have to call to a contract and so on and so forth. Which again, this is the state today, building from the most low energy activation level. So what is the least amount of stuff that a client can do? So then we have the KYSP service, which I believe Kero was talking about earlier. Yes, in this room. So that's all it is. It is the source of information on the storage providers that are either meeting requirements or are provided by a particular client. Then we have the eligible SPs that talk to what we call the broker service, which is a very simple self-authenticated API. Any SP with an active actor on chain can call this API today. And if they're not paired with any kind of data owner ahead of time, they will get an empty list. But if they are paired, what they are going to get every time that an SP calls our service, they're going to get a list of PCIDs and their sources. And this is based on the requirements that you meet and the replication policy that is applied to a particular set of PCIDs, and based also on the storage provider having signed up for the dataset of this client, and the storage client approving that this particular SP is somebody they want to work with. The magic happens, and this thing sends back a deal proposal to the storage provider. From this point on, the storage provider has a list, which is maintained, again, by this API that they poll every however many minutes they want. And it lists how many of the PCIDs are reserved for them and where to get them, because the data owner provided URLs or other sources of where to get this data. And then the storage provider just one by one goes down the list and does pull storage contracts at their own pace, pulls the data at their own pace, uses whatever aggregation they want, and so on and so forth. Then the system additionally has the DL oracle, which is effectively a thing that watches the chain and provides inputs into the API and to the client, and also to the SP, what is actually deemed valid by the chain. So once a contract is done and once the data has been transferred and it's been landed in the sector and the sector has been poreped, then this thing will say like, yeah, this particular PCID did go to the particular storage provider and everything is great. And this is how the replication policies are calculated and so on and so forth. And then we also have the validation bot, which is the retrieval bot and the location testing. I don't remember if we talked about this today. Maybe we have a session tomorrow. But yeah, this is a distributed network by multiple participants being able to poll certain PCIDs from certain SPs and feeding this information to the orchestrator, which again will decide whether the next time a particular SP asks for a particular PCID, if they were not behaving for other PCIDs, they will not get permission to deal further. So this is like just a whirlwind overview. The important thing is this. There are effectively 6 components in this entire thing that I described. And these components are entirely standalone. Like even today, they actually run on different deployments, different machines, they're different code bases and so on. So as I said, the tenant service is the thing that the storage client talks to. We actually haven't updated this diagram. It's supposed to be like right here. This is where storage client can add additional data, like I want more stuff to be replicated starting today. This is also where data owners will be able to sign up for the service in the future once we release the data owner / client / tenant service to the world sometime this year. Then we have ground control, which is right here, what Caro spoke about. The retrieval bot that I just mentioned. We have the Oracle. We have, I didn't talk about this, so this is a very simple service, but a critical one. It is a relay service that allows the storage client, the data owner, to keep their wallet at all times. The rest of the system never gets hold of anybody's like private keys. What happens is whenever all of this back and forth takes place, and when a storage provider calls into this service to ask for a storage contract, This service, just like a lawyer puts together documents, uses this relay service to call the client, says sign this, the client signs this, then it is being sent to the storage provider. So the client the data owner keeps their keys in hand at all times. And then we have the broker service, which is this thing in the middle. So the point of my talk and why it is very cool that at least some SVs are in the room today, and I hope that folks watching at home will get a little bit inspired by this. This is the last slide. We want more of these services. So today, this thing is under development. It is like in very early stages, and having people sign up today is effectively a manual process. But at the end of the day, the rest of the system doesn't care where a particular set of PCIDs and requirements the replication policy came from. So we would like there to be other providers. I don't know if Storage or Sildom, yep, they're not in the room. But folks like that being able to bring their own separation of individual data owners and their individual bags of PCIDs and so on and so forth would be great to be able to integrate with more services like that, except for the one that we are building right now. It would be excellent to have more than one KYB service. We are running one today because nobody else is effectively in a shape that our system can consume. But just like in in the States and pretty much most other capitalistic countries, we have multiple rating agencies for are you a real person, are you creditworthy, and so on and so forth. We definitely, in order to make all of this work fairly and without bias, we need more services like this. And then we also would like to have more people running various validation services. So in an ideal world, when we move to having unlocked most of the Web 2.0 use cases, which are predominantly private data, we want to offer data owners to be able to self-verify whether their data is being served by SPs under the SLAs they require. Yes, of course, currently we run a service like this. I believe we run 2 of them. But if we had a larger network of those, we would be in a position where multiple eyes crowdsource the SLA conformance for each individual data set from the same set of SPs, and this way we can build a more multifaceted reputation about each individual storage provider or storage provider group that uses the service. And this would lift all boats, because now any data owner can rely on multiple quote-unquote rating agencies and their results to figure out who am I actually going to be dealing with, or to allow the system to automatically select based on the SP requirements that come from multiple from multiple retrievable providers, how things are going. And then these 3 services, we plan to keep providing them indefinitely for very nominal cost, or some of them free. Like, for example, the Oracle will be free in some shape for bulk queries. And yeah, so this is pretty much the overview of what Spade is. It is not exactly a service. While it does run as a service today, being run effectively by the same team, all these 6 pieces, it's more of an idea that we have a set of actors in this network who are currently hurting for multiple reasons, and they still would like to use the system just as lean as possible given the times we're in. So a system like this is a way to split the tasks between different providers and different services in such a way that these guys are able to ingest data as smooth and as uneventful as possible. And yeah, that's my presentation. It's very short on purpose. The rest of the time is for questions.
Ian.
From the Filecoin Foundation.
He says FF. And FFTW. So one of the things that I've heard when talking to SPs is that right now to support retrievals, they need to keep both a sealed and unsealed copy, which doubles their storage costs. Is there a way, one of the ways to reduce the overall storage cost among multiple replicas is to have only one SP keep an unsealed copy for retrievals and have the other SPs only keep sealed copies. Is there any way to put that requirement in the replication policy or something so that they don't get negatively influenced in retrieval bot metrics for not keeping unsealed copies?
Understand your question. It is SPs are not doing what you described, not because they don't want to, but because the software today doesn't allow it. So this is more of a question to the Lotus and Venus teams. If SPs had an easy way to do what you described, they would be already doing it. And in general, the policy that we have in place, we actually do not really require unsealed copy on-prem. What we require is when, the validation bot calls out to a particular SP for them to give an answer. Where this answer came from is something that we could measure down the road, like when the stack is optimized enough that it responds in, let's say, 10 milliseconds, then we could measure, like, okay, how far are you from the measuring instance? But today, the stack itself has so much room for optimization that having the retrieval request come from a different node is effectively invisible to you as a client. So there is work already slated in Boost to be able to do exactly what you described, to basically share copies between themselves. There is also a very interesting change potential to the network itself that would allow a thing called proof of access, which will accelerate the move towards unsealed copies being shared between multiple actors. But yeah, this is a little bit out of scope to the entire policy thing, and also it is work in progress. So hopefully we'll get there in about, I don't know, a few months.
I have a question on
Simon.
Oh yeah, hi, Simon from Protocol Labs. You talked about this is going to be a very SP-oriented tooling, and there is on the diagram when you become an eligible SP. Are there any thoughts on a reputation system with the list of SPs? So, but post KY SP service, wouldn't that just be coming validated to become an eligible SP? But I'm saying once you become the SP, with the list of multiple SPs in there, is there any thoughts on reputation, on performance based on the SPs?
Carol, do you want to take this question?
Yeah, I started listening halfway through, but the question was, sorry, I was trying to answer something on my phone as well.
Spade reputation service, how does it work?
Yeah, so the reputation for the SP will be an ongoing check that runs basically constantly, and this data will be updated. And whenever Spade consumes from it, it's from an updated real-time list of reputation that feeds into the eligibility list of SPs.
Yeah, it's basically an ongoing process, right? The more an SP uses the system, the more their behavior becomes visible to the client whose data the observations are based on. Yes.
Andrew, can you introduce
Andrew from DSS.
Thank you.
Is there a way to KYSP the entity and then have us just roll in IDs as and when they're created, because we create them often?
You're asking once you basically authenticate yourself with one SP ID, can you just keep adding more SP IDs? No.
I know there's not currently.
No in general, because like every additional SP ID. So here is the logic behind this. Generally, for the most of replication requirements, clients really care about geographic distribution. And our hypothesis is that once a storage provider is established and once it is past like the minimum like 10 tips and whatever it is, right, it is somewhat inconvenient to move it, especially without failing window posts and stuff like that. So the reason for your new SPIDs having to get to the, to the block producing level and then go through the service that Carol was talking about is to ascertain where is this SP located physically. And yes, there are checks even happening after the fact that recheck if the SP is still where you originally claimed it is. But the reason your SPIDs are not automatically enabled when you add them to our list is because if you claim that these SPIDs are in a different jurisdiction and they actually are still in, next to the other ones that you have, this becomes a problem from a replication perspective.
Just to add to that before you respond, I think we are interested in automating this as much as possible. So the process that you see today is actually fairly still manual. We are only working with 2 tenants, effectively in a private beta of sorts, and so there's a lot of handholding happening in the process that is going away. And so the pain that you see from like registering a new ID today, that will go away to some extent. You will still be expected to produce data on a per SPID basis, because if you change your mind down the line about what the world knows about that ID, you should have control over it and not need to do that as like an entire operation at once. We're also interested in improving the management plane experience for an SP operation. So that might be to say, hey, I've signed up these 10 IDs, I own all 10 of them, I can prove that to you. All the characteristics of these have been described as expected. Now, in one go, I would like to sign all 10 of these up to take data from the Prelinger archives. And so that kind of stuff, I think we're very interested in doing at the SP operation and entity level. However, registration needs to be controlled at an ID level, because what we want to be able to do then is go back in time and say, hey, at some point in time, there was tenant A that wanted 85 or 90% retrievability via bit swap for this piece of data. And then on some date, 10 days ago, they changed that to 90%. And you had these 8 IDs, and only 6 of them acknowledged that change to 90%. And so only those 6 are eligible until the other ones are, so that we can then go back and historically show in an audit log that these 8 were eligible at some point in time, something changed, you didn't acknowledge that change across the board. And so we are interested in making acknowledgement of those things easy. We're interested in management plane experiences on top of this thing, but the primitive has to be at the SPID level.
Yeah, and just to correct my answer a little bit, the way I understood you asking is not can it be more efficient, but can I have less scrutiny? So no to the less scrutiny, yes to it being more efficient.
Okay, still Andrew from DSS. So was on one part trying to reduce your workload, since I just asked you to approve some more IDs. But the other thing then in connection with that is then, how do we build up reputation for a new SP when...
Very good. Yeah. So I think I'm going to ask Caro, actually, to respond to that first. Putting her on the spot again.
Carol from Protocol Labs. So there is an ongoing check that is always checking the SP, say the location of the SP or the miner of the miner power of this SP on chain. All this information has a database that's always updated, and there's this Spade service, KYSP Spade service that gets this data and updates that SP eligibility. So when there's new SP that signs up, they will be in the ongoing check, and whenever they want to onboard Spade, Spade will pull from this database and check from the tenant's point of view whether this SP meets their criteria.
A couple of things to add to that. So if you're starting from zero, then we have no knowledge about you. So theoretically, you're signing up for work, and you'll be able to prove yourself over time. And so when we're thinking about like dynamic eligibility, say based on retrievability of data, we will start at a baseline of zero, and that should be considered fine. And then it's like, okay, we'll learn over time if like that needs to be measured at a 4-week moving average or a 6-week moving average or something. And then to your other point, in ground control right now, there's a way in which you would basically say, this is ID F0123455, and it's actually part of a group of IDs, which includes F01111, F01124, whatever, and they're all DSS. And so this new ID comes up, and there's a grouping of an org and entity level, and if you choose to opt into that, in theory, that should have helped you because you've earned this great reputation and all these other things. And that's also why we're really interested in bringing the value of ground control to the blockchain at a credentialing level, because then you can earn those things as DSS. And now if you want to announce to the world that, hey, entity number 62 is DSS, that's on you, not on us. We're not going to sit there and expose PII like that. But we want to be able to show that these groupings do exist, and therefore reputation can be earned and shared when rights exist for it.
Yeah. I actually have a question for Andrew. Can you?
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
Why do you change your IDs all the time?
Funding. So lenders of Filecoin for collateral purposes, different lenders, even different tranches of loans with the same lenders may require new IDs, often require new IDs. One lender might run out of fill, so we have to borrow from a new one, and they require a new ID, so then we spin up a new miner.
Yeah, and have you explored the on-chain lending tools like Glyph, which allow you to, to like mortgage out an SPID, move it from pool to pool, and so on and so forth?
I have explored that, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Some of these discussions were happening on internal Slack channels. So Anjur from Protocol Labs, I want to bring it to the public forum. So there was a question that came in Caro's talk around ground control being functioning as a centralized service today, whereas here what you're saying is the call to action is ground control should be decentralized and there should be more. What's
both? There can be centralized services. There should be decentralized services. The point is that there should be many of them, just like you have community banks, you have mega banks, and so on and so forth.
How does the broker service then think about which ground control to trust?
The broker service doesn't care about that.
Tenant.
It is the tenant data owner. In their policy then says, I want the SPs be selected from a pool based on this criteria, and those are the rating agencies or certifying agencies that I trust.
So we're actually doing this right now with the two tenants we have in private alpha, private beta, whatever. Pilot. We've got Daghouse and we've got Internet Archive, and they're actually running on two different tracks. Two different instances effectively that do almost the same thing. There's like a form that an SP fills out that Caro's facilitated a pipeline behind, but the database that says, oh, these are the IDs that it signed up that Daghouse is fine working with is a different database than the Internet Archive one. And the IA one has been set up as like, okay, future collaboration with IA or related organizations or FF or whatever may have different requirements, and so it makes sense for them to think about this stuff differently. And so we've already tested this to some extent and have two completely different pools for each of the tenants that's on there to reference for what counts, like who is part of that eligible set.